Hello, welcome to this new episode of the Alex Show TV. As you can see, I have a guest, and I have the great pleasure and honor to have Peter Panagor on the show again. I'm very happy, Peter, to have you back. Thank you. Thank you for being back on the show.
I love being back here, Alex, because I think we had such a great conversation the first time. Thank you.
Yes, it was. It had a lot of attention. I got a lot of very good feedback from that. I remember a very good friend of mine telling me privately was just an amazing testimony and conversation. And so, Peter, we were discussing before recording that I know we touched it on the previous show, but for me, it's such a deep subject, so something that I'm very fond of. This moment you were out there in the presence of creation, you were looking at all your lives. Some call it the omnipresence, some call it the void, some call it the everything, some call it the nothing. I mean, I think the words. I don't know if we can understand it and explain it. I know it's very difficult to put in words, but can you share with us again that experience, that bliss, that joy of being out there in that moment?
Yeah, and no name will ever capture it. That's been the problem of mysticism, East and West, since human beings could speak. Everything that you say about every word that we use is contextualized in the language structure of the human experience, and this is way far beyond the human experience. There's not even a brain there to process the information, and so it's paradoxical as well, especially on this side of the experience. But in my near-death experience, and I experienced this unitive state where I could describe it with a bunch of different words: healing, wholeness, wellness, love, light, awe, understanding, knowledge, intelligence, mercy, the breadth of the joy of the presence of the being once I stopped being attached to myself was, well, it's all I want now in my life. It's what I've been after ever since I had that experience. I try to cultivate here what I had there, because what I had there was reality with a capital R, and beyond language, just love, love, love that permeated everything there was on the other side. There was no thing that was separate from this. And enough of that came back with me so that I see that that's true here to a more limited extent. And so my whole life since then has been a process of, well, self with a capital S, rediscovery. But when I was on the other side, the first thing that happened, well, putting it in order is a very difficult thing to do, but I went through a situation of judgment, and the judgment I went through was judging myself. Mm-hmm. It was I was not judged. I was understood to be a human being, and as a human being, I was understood to be in a flawed state, just in terms of its, and the flaw is not a negative flaw. It's a limited form of the unlimited. And so I understood, I knew that I understood that I was being understood by the unlimited perfection, and that I was beloved even though I wasn't unlimited and perfect, because I was made this way. So this construct of my entire life and the whole universe is less than the unmanifested, the no thingness. And so I came into the presence still having some attachment to my lower self. When I was in front of this I, which was sort of a reduction of the light, seeing me, creating me, showing me my human life, but also creating my soul self, I saw a portion of my human life that I wanted to hide from the light because it was dark things that I had done. And as soon as I tried to hide this rather than allow it to be illuminated, I entered into this space of all these dark things that I had done, things that I had thought, and how they had impacted other people negatively. I went through this self-judgment of re-experiencing all of the things that I had done to these people, and experienced simultaneously how they responded from their interior to what I had just done or said to them, I was the other person as well in this sequential series of everything that I had ever done wrong in my life. And meanwhile, the light itself wasn't judging me. It was simply showing me. And as it showed me my limitation, it showed me infinite love simultaneously. And so even though I was measuring myself against this immensity, I am so small, you are so large. I'm sorry that I treated these people this way. The overwhelm of love superseded all of the things I had ever done in my life. And as soon as I let them go, by accepting the love that was on offer, as soon as I welcomed the love, I was entered into the state I just tried to describe, this healing, wholeness, wellness, eternal nature, intelligence, mercy, joy, bliss, paradise, awe. All of my limitation from my human life was gone, and I was illuminated. I was illuminated, expanded, inflated, welcomed, and shown that I am a portion thereof of the very love that creates me. And the residual of that in my life, I chose to come back, and the overlay of my life is that a portion of that came back with me, which set me on this path of how do I find more of that in this life so that I can live inside the light as I pass through this life.
Well, a lot there. I was trying to keep notes in my head, the questions I had. The first one, going back, that when you say that the human experience is understood, that it's not a flaw, I totally agree with you. Is it a limitation? Is that we're limited? Is that it's impossible for us to have that here on Earth on this density? And it's understood that we're limited. I say it on my shows that maybe it's a word that is not a right choice, but primitive, that we are limited, that we're in an experience that is basic by design. And so maybe for us to expect that we're going to behave like we're going to behave eventually, going back to creation, that I also believe we're a little piece of a puzzle. Imagine a billion-piece puzzle. Okay, we're a little piece. You're a little piece. I'm a little piece. You're different than I in that sense. Maybe you're a little window. I'm a tire of a car out there in a photograph or something. And we go and enjoy these experiences to try and be something separated. And when we're done, I'm totally sure we're all going back to the puzzle. We're all going back to the creation, to what you experienced briefly there. I think we're all going back, and we're all wishing we could go back right now. I think we just, the ones that don't feel that way just because they're not remembering. But I'm sure we have experienced what you have experienced. We just don't remember it properly. And
absolutely.
And we're all willing just to go back. Of course, we have to go through these experiences. And you were saying something great, because that's how I feel. These very complicated and a lot of school of thoughts on the concept of karma, okay? Of this concept that, of course, you cannot be doing things to others. I call it interfering. You kill someone, you interfere with their life. You abuse someone, all of these. Of course, we're not. But more than the fear of the consequences, like hell and heaven. Okay, if you do this, you're not going to go to heaven, you're going to go to hell. I think it's a way of really put fear in you that you must behave, not because it's your natural state of love, which is, I believe we all have a natural state, and it's love. It's not something else. If you feel rage, hate, fear, anger, is not your natural state. So the way you described it, that you judge yourself and then you feel the pain you have created, to dimension it, not to suffer, but to dimension it, to understand, to really evolve and mature and say, I don't want to do that again, but not out of the fear of the consequence, not because it's right or wrong, again, these labels, this duality, it's because my mission is not that. I was wrong, and I understand that now. There's also this concept, which I don't think works that way, and you explained it, of reparations and paying debts and stuff like that. Like, okay, so you killed someone, so in another life that person comes back and now kills you. How is that helping someone? I mean, how to experience it in your own skin is going to help. I think there's an overrated concept of experiencing things in the physical that I think the spirit learns in other ways. And really physical pain is like this concept that you teach your kids by hitting them, by shouting to them, but instead of trying to understand them and support them and make them mature, make them understand, make them judge themselves and evolve, not by force and by fear and by violence, okay? So, and the last point I want to make, and I'll give it back to you, is very important that thoughts have importance, almost equally or probably equally to actions, physical actions. There's this concept that, hey, I think something horrible, but I didn't do the physical action, so it's fine. No. I mean, you have to understand, you have to understand your thoughts. If you're in eternal gratitude and always thinking of positive for everyone, you are creating something, even if you don't see it, okay? Some say, wait, why should I think of Africa if really it's not going to help anyway? People are going to continue to die of hunger. No, trust me, we all will say that shouldn't happen anymore. People shouldn't die of hunger in this world. Trust me, it's going to change. But we put very little value on intentionality or the intentions of our heart, which is our thoughts. So, hey, you have a problem with your boss, I wish he died. Well, that's a thought. Trust me, that's a thought. Even if you say, hey, I'm not going to go through it, which is like human justice works. I mean, maybe you thought about it, but he didn't do anything, so it's not a crime. Well, I think thoughts are energy, and we think we need to learn that the best way is just do everything through gratitude, to asking the best outcome for everyone and everything. And it's such a peace to be in that state. And I'm a human. I have problems every day. I have bad thoughts every day. Trust me, it's a working process. But it's such a beauty to try to embrace this concept that thoughts matter. Okay.
Yeah, I think thoughts matter at a very minimum. They create our identity. We are literally what we think. Our worldview on the interior and our worldview on the exterior all comes from what we think. And the things we think about, well, they become our identity and they become our actions. So, for instance, I like to use negative thoughts about yourself as an example. So, a person who self-recriminates, oh, I'm such a bad person. I didn't hold the door for the old lady who then fell and broke her ankle, and it's all my fault because I didn't hold the door for her. And whether it is your fault or not your fault, it's in terms of the self, the repetition of the negativity creates the depression and the self-identity, and then you live through that world. Yeah, and all your actions arise through the negative view of yourself. And my about karma and thought, I know that, like you, I have bad thoughts during the day, and my mind has its own mind, and I try to train my mind towards silence, because I find that the closest I come to the connection to the light that I lived in when I was dead is accessible to me when I'm not in the way. And my thinking is what is in my way, which is which creates my identity. And so if I want to escape the wheel of karma, then I need to pursue light with the whole of my being. And to pursue light with the whole of my being is to stop. First step is, for me, is to stop telling me who my mind thinks I am, and allow who I actually am to express itself. And I do that through practices of spirituality. Ritualized, when I say ritualized, I mean a regular practice of my spirituality. I have ritualized my meditation life. I meditate, with certain tools that I use, and I meditate pretty much every day. And that ritualization of it trains my brain to stop thinking, which allows me to rest inside this peace, which is close to the divine energy itself, which then allows me to be present in my daily life as opposed to running ahead and running behind, so that I can be mindful of where I am and the people I'm with, and I can pay attention to them. And the example I'm going to use is I live in a tourist town. And so in the summertime, there's lots of tourists. Right now it's autumn and there's a lot of tourists, and there's different kinds of tourists who come to our town. This time of year, the tourists who come to our town don't have summer houses here. They're weekenders. And when I'm in the grocery store and people don't even see each other. They don't look at each other. They don't talk to each other. They push by each other. They don't see each other as human beings. And I think the problem is that they're so self-involved that they can't recognize or don't want to recognize that they're not alone. And I think that so in a practical sense, my meditation life brings me into the now. So when I'm in the grocery store and I have an easier time of paying attention to the people around me and stepping out of their way and helping them. Like I was walking on the sidewalk yesterday, and this couple, I'm sure that this man probably thought he was some kind of alpha male and was going to shoulder by me hard. I just merely stepped aside, but but I was paying attention to my own interior world and in my own little piece, and so I lost nothing to step aside. I'm finding that this process of stepping aside is exactly what happens in my meditation life. As I begin to quiet my mind down, I step aside from my own worldview, my own identity, and allow the divine being to assert itself inside of me and allows this connection to be present for me, which leads me to leaning into the light in choices that I make in my life. And so swinging back to karma here, in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm pretty sure it is, the good action is good karma. You can create love and light in the world by treating people with kindness and compassion, not being a doormat, but being kind and compassionate. And that action of selflessness in society feeds the soul, which feeds the meditation, and the meditation feeds the action. And so there's this cyclical thing that happens. And that both of these things, the interior and the exterior, and all of the choices I make, because I'm leaning toward the light, then that's the karma that I accrue, is the leaning toward the light. I think of it as light gathering. And so I'm gathering this light by turning off my own light. I'm shutting off my own mind and allowing this other light to enter into me, and I'm treating others with kindness and compassion, and allowing the light inside of them and the light inside of me to interact. And that creates. So why do I think that the mission and goal in life isn't a school so much as a reconnection to the light of the divine being itself? Mm-hmm. And so I don't really think I'm here to learn anything. When I was dead, I knew everything that I needed to know and more. It seems to me that here my task in my life is to allow myself to become as empty as possible, to allow as much light inside of my being as possible, and then it just stays. And so it impacts my karma going forward. When I died the second time, and every other in my first near-death experience, and all of my other mystical experiences, when I've been taken out of body, I've always been carried. But when I died the second time and I came out of my body, I was not carried. I was parallel with the angelic orb of consciousness, for lack of a better term, and began to ascend side by side, essentially. And then I chose to stay here. And and that was only in 2015. That's 9 years ago. And I've been thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And what I think is, and I don't know this, but I think this, that in the interim between my first NDE and my second NDE is I've spent my life in the accumulation of light, and I was strong enough not to have to be carried. I could go parallel. And I think that that's an example of the changing the karmic course of my eternal nature. And that it's really much more, it's not so much about judgment or non-judgment as it is light and not light, acceptance of light and rejection of light. And so in my judgment, to swing even deeper here, when in my self-judgment, once I accepted the light, I became that. And I think that that is true for this life. At least my experience of it is, I know that it's true in my life. I can't speak for anybody else. And so how I'm trying to manage my karmic future is attaching myself to the light every chance I have, every opportunity. And I create them, and I create the ritual of my meditation practice to create that opportunity for myself. And then in my daily life, I encounter people and I try to be present to the situation that I'm in, basically, and pay attention to them as human beings, and that accrues light as well. That's a long. I hopefully hit the nails on the head. That I don't. It's
No, that was incredible. I more I cannot explain it in the way you go and elaborate, but the way I feel it, I can only go with feel here, is that I also agree with you. It's not a school, also because I believe lessons in the physical, in the flesh, are for that. Maybe I agree more with the ones that align that we're here for the experience, and what I mean with that is not experience as an enjoyment. Okay, experience as something that we have to experience. I'm sorry about the double word. So I believe that we are here to understand, even in this experience, as difficult as it is, because it is difficult. It is difficult to be a human. We must try to behave as spirits. Try to have that. And the brain, the mind has a lot to do with it. I'm not going to go into detail that if the mind is programmed, is poison. I'm just going to say that I tried first with meditation, but living in a big city, and it's not a justification, but living in a big city, having a hectic life, father, young boys, wife, I have my own business. So I found that I was probably better off trying to control my mind, not have 5-10 minute meditations and then my mind will go wild. But every time those thoughts, I don't want to call them negative, but those thoughts that seem to be controlling me instead of me being controlling the thought, I will inform the mind who's the boss.
Yeah.
Mind, you are not the boss of me. I'm the boss of you. So you are great. You help me to traverse this reality. You help me to process information. You help me to operate my 5 senses. I thank you. But when there's an agenda coming, that's when I block it. And I say, no, thank you. And that's one example. I don't know, the typical case that we are all humans and we go through those emotions that, hey, did you see? You called this person and they haven't called you back. Stuff like that, okay? Or you treated this person very well and you see how they treat you. And that's when I block it, because I made my peace that I don't control the out there.
Mm-hmm.
I only control the inside of me. I only control my spirit and my mind. I have no importance at all on the out there. So I'm not, every time a thought like that comes to my mind, I block it and I know there's an agenda there. And I believe the wars, I believe the division, I believe the hate, people hating others because of the color of their skin, people hating others because their sexual preference, people hating others because of the country they're from. That is just a coincidence. Can we agree? I mean, I was born in Italy, I live in Mexico, but it's a coincidence. And some people judge me differently when I share that I was born in Italy. Like, will that make me different of who I am? No, I could easily have been born in Mexico. Well, they say, oh, okay, so you're from Italy. You're not Mexican born. I see you different now.
Yeah.
Why? That's all the mind. If we can clear those minds, they suddenly will see someone and the color of the skin wouldn't have an importance, and the sexual preference wouldn't have an importance, and the country and everything. I say it, we're brothers and sisters, but we're more than that. Really, for you to have a division thought, it's like you wanting parting ways with your hand, with your arm, with your eye. We all at the end are gonna go back to the puzzle. We're little pieces. And we're going to go back to the puzzle. And maybe you and I are going to be nearby or maybe separated, but we are going to be part of the same thing. So it's not that I'm not a liberal or anything like that. I don't attach to any political agenda or anything like that. For me, it's just any division comes from the mind, comes from thoughts from the mind.
Yeah.
And as we allow them to control us. I don't know what you think of that.
I'm with you. Controlling my mind as I go through my day is part of my process. And so, for instance, this morning I woke up and for some reason, I had a song in my head, and my mind is just running, and I'm like, no, 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 I'm in charge here. I don't want to hear that song. And so, it's a form of meditation. So, meditation is basically mental focus using breath and language. Well, it's a few other things than that, but mostly mental focus and breath, and to control the mind. And whether you're sitting or you're in a meeting or you're on the phone, to stop the mind from running off on its own. And then you get to pay attention to what's actually going on. And so you were talking about internationalism and tribalism. The state that I live in a state that is in a state of Maine in the United States, and it only has one highway going north and south, and it's essentially isolated from all the other states. It has been for hundreds of years since the colonists came, the colonial imposition. And they have a thing here called people from away. PFAs, people from away. If your grandparents weren't born here, you're not part of this community, not really. But it always has to do with tribalism and power and resources. But the thing is that we share 99% of our DNA, every single human being, all of us, everybody on the planet, whether you get Denisovans or Neanderthal, at 99% of your DNA is the same as mine. And that you can't get much more human than that, and equal. And it's 99% purity of being a human. It's the little tiny 1% where, the genders, what gender you are, and what skin color you are, what eye color you are, whether you got white hair or dark hair or whatever. I don't think that any of that's going to change until there's either a spiritual revolution on the planet where we all begin to do what you're talking about is, and what I'm talking about here, what I'm living in, is that we are all made of the light of the divine, or perhaps, some civilization from another planet shows up someday and says, oh, no, you're all just like each other. You're all human beings, and you're one planet. And, when there's 80,000 other planets out there with other civilizations on it, you're the human planet. So I hope that in the future that we're going to change. But so far, tribalism has been part of our survivalism since we were hominids. And it's by banding together in groups that we're able to keep resources for ourselves, so our group survives, so my children, not their children, my children survive. But that doesn't really work anymore now. There's 8 billion of us on the planet, we're bumping up against each other. And if we continue on the path that we've been on for 100,000 years of tribalism, we're eventually going to destroy either our home, which we're doing a pretty good job of now, or each other. And I'd rather see us survive as a species on a planet that is habitable, more than just habitable, but enjoyable and lovely and comfortable. But it all stems from the egoic self. So tribalism comes from a collection of individual egos, and these individual egos have self-interest, and the practices of spirituality are not about self-interest, because they are about the non-attachment to self. And when one practices some kind of non-attachment to self, either in the world or in meditation, one begins to see the light inside oneself and the light inside another, and tribalism kind of goes away. And the world, as you know, is pretty divided right now.
Yes, and I kind of understand what you're saying, that I think it's probably a memory we have that, for example, with your example of Maine, maybe 2, 3, 5, 1,000 years ago,
right,
other people from other parts will come, and let's be honest here, the probability is they took advantage of people from Maine, and that kind of stays. That's why the world is divided, because we haven't. If we will put the energy to fight each other into uniting, everything will change. This world can change, but it will take that fundamental thing that we cannot continue fighting each other. And then you mentioned something that I'm very fond of, which is nature. That's another thing. When we understand that nature, we need to work with nature, not take advantage of nature. You say it perfectly. And I'm not, a lot of people take things out of context sometimes and send me emails or make comments that if I'm against oil or climate change. No, I'm not against anything. I'm forward of treating nature as we should. There's some way somehow that we can continue surviving and getting our needs for food and etc. and shelter without really destroying the planet, because we're in that path. Really, it's not about the oil and the electric cars and solar energy. It's about finding a way that we leave nature alone and we actually help it thrive instead of hindering. Nature is so amazing that we have been awful to it for thousands of years, and it's still beautiful and thriving despite. So we need to understand that there's no difference between nature and a human.
No.
There's no difference between a butterfly and a human. We are all part of creation, and when we start not only working amongst each others, but with nature, just imagine what a beautiful world.
Yeah, it could be very different. I think that the Judeo-Christian tradition rooted in the Genesis perspective that human beings are above nature created the situation that's been passed down and passed down and passed down, instead of understanding that we are nature. I'm not separate from nature. Heck, I've got a garden. My garden grows plants in my garden, and I eat them. And I become, you are what you eat, literally. I become the energy that's in the plant, the nutrients, they become my body. I am completely dependent upon nature. And that's a mind shift that hopefully we're going to be able to go through, because the planet is not surviving us right now. Well, the planet's going to be fine. Humanity's going to struggle. The planet's probably going to be here for a very long time. Humanity is the question. Are we going to be here or not? And where I live on the Atlantic Ocean, and we had 3 major storms this past winter, and they wiped out entire roads, and the roads were gone. And it kind of what's going on in some similar flooding situations. It was smaller here. It was just tidal flood, not water flood like rain. But there was a place that got like 27 inches of rain in the United States last week, and their whole towns are gone. And it's because the Gulf is warming, and the body of water that I live on, the Gulf of Mexico, is warming. As you know, you live there, or Mexico is like borders the western side of that. The Gulf of Maine, where I live, is the fastest warming body of water in the world. If it's not it's one of the top. And all of the fish resources, they're all moving north. The lobsters are going deeper, and they're walking north, and we've got southern fish coming in. We've impacted the world, and now we have to live with what we did. And if we're forward thinking, we'll figure out a way that nature can survive, and we can too. It's because it's a symbiotic relationship we have here.
I'm sure there's a way, Peter. I'm sure there's a way. The only thing is, that's a very difficult subject, but we have to understand that might not benefit a few.
Oh,
that might not benefit a few, and that's the problem. Okay? Maybe it will benefit all humans and all nature. But when we have interest groups, that's going to be difficult, that there's a solution and it's sustainable and it only benefits a few. No, that benefit a few has to go with scarcity. And because then scarce, so that's where the profit comes. And
control of resources, that's what I mentioned a couple minutes ago.
Yes, exactly. So no, I agree with you. The planet is showing right now, you probably have seen pictures or heard of it, that basically, I mean, we had northern lights here where I live.
Yeah,
I live south of Texas. I'm 200 kilometers from Laredo, Texas, and northern lights, not in the city, because of course it's impossible with the light of the city will we don't see any stars in the city, but outside the city, around 30 miles outside of my city, there are pictures of red northern lights. That's unheard of. That's historically not been happening. So what's happening? Well, you have to understand scientifically, northern lights is basically that the ionosphere, I'm not exactly sure what, but part of the atmosphere are weakened, and they're allowing more radiation from the sun to present itself in that way. That's why in northern latitudes, in some times of year, you are able to see northern lights. But right now, for them to be everywhere, it's something to say what's going on. I'm totally confident that if we will stop, the nature will fix itself. The earth will fix itself.
Oh yeah, it always has.
I don't have that's why I'm not concerned that all these ideas that we have to do artificial things to fix now. If we just stop and start being respectful to Earth and nature, everything is going to be fine.
Well, there's been at least 2 great extinctions in the history of Earth, and nature has always come back.
Yes.
Or it's come back both times anyway.
Yes. Peter, as we prepare here kind of the end of the show, I was wondering if you would like to speak about your movie that is coming along, what it is about, when it's coming out, stuff like that.
Well, I don't know when it's coming out yet, but it's going along very, very well. I spent the last 3 years writing Act 1 and Act 3. I'm not the script writer, but it amounts to Act 1 and Act 3, a prequel and a sequel. And my publisher has agreed to put out a special edition of the book, which is over there over my shoulder, the blue cover.
Okay.
And the producers needed me to produce a prequel and a sequel so that we could set the tone for the story, set the setting for the story, and then have a conclusion for it that shows how I lived with it after the NDE. And so right now we're waiting for my publisher to produce at their expense 50 copies to give to scriptwriters. And the scriptwriters that they mentioned were pretty spectacular, and the actors are amazing. And so where we are now is we're going to engage a scriptwriter, and somewhere between 3 months to 6 months or so, this person will write the script, and then we'll begin to make a movie. So we're moving along. It's been a long process, but it's really pretty amazing. The people I'm working with are, well, he's won a whole ton of awards, and he wants to win a whole ton more. So it's not just a movie he wants to make. He wants to make an award-winning film, and that's what we've been working toward. I'm astounded that I get to work with these people. It's been they've been my tutors. They've changed the style of my writing. I came to understand how to write a plot, even though this is memoir. To write it, I write creatively in the memoir, but to drive a plot forward with emotionality is the primary function of plot, and that the character and setting and all the rest of the components of plot kind of get layered on top of emotion. And so it's been, for me personally, a great experience. And they were talking about a sequel because there's going to be another book, and we'll see what all happens. So sometime in the next couple of years, it'll be out. But in the meanwhile, we're just plugging away still.
Great. Please, when there's more information, let me know, and I'll be happy to.
Thank you, Alex.
To make a show about it or something. And as the previous show, I'm going to include all the information you will want me to share, your books and everything, on the video description. I believe I share your website and other information on the previous show. And I think when you do things with passion, this happens. And for you, your story is so amazing. And for me, because it has that component. I've seen other NDEs that, let's just say, I don't resonate that much. The ones that come and say, I saw a war, I saw the future. Yours is this moment of bliss that I understand completely what you mean, that you didn't want to come back. Because that's what I think we're trying. We're all in that search of that moment of bliss, of being spirits in this life. And that's why I understand every human on earth. It's so difficult to be a human because we have this flesh, which is not bad or good. It's just different. It's dense. It has different needs. It's looking always for the pleasures as a flesh, because that's why also animals look for pleasure and etc. It's doing what it's intended. So we have this combination, and really I see it as a needle, like the gas needle in your car, that you're always there. And some people are very attached to the material and that, and some people believe that when you physically die, you die, and all of these experiences that have been shared is just hallucinations and stuff like that. That's perfect. That's their view. I think their needle is very attached to the material, to the physical. And when someone like you has these experiences, I think the needle is somewhere more close to the spirit. It's very difficult to be a spirit in this. Actually, I believe if you are 100% spirit, you die, you leave the physical. And sometimes I believe some deaths happen when you want to go back to 100% spirit. For example, people that have been married a long time, the spouse dies, a lot of stories that the husband dies a week after. The
Yep.
spirit said, enough, I'm going. So thank you, Peter, for being back. I really enjoy your chats. I hope you can be back for a third time.
Anytime, Alex.
Thank you very much. And I just want to share the book. If I'm reading correctly, it's Heaven is Beautiful.
Correct.
Okay. Yes, I'm able to make it out. It's right there on the bottom right part of Peter's screen. And can you get it in the usual places, in your website or Amazon
it's
or
bookstores all over the world.
Okay, great. Is it in several languages?
It's in Hungarian and English, and it's
Okay.
not. We'd love to have it in Spanish, but that has not happened yet. We were looking for a publisher who would do that, but that one hasn't materialized yet.
Okay, just out of curiosity, Hungarian, that's pretty specific. It's
I know,
happened
it's
that
pretty
way,
weird.
or-
It just so my publisher was at some convention, and this Hungarian publisher published it. I don't really.
Great.
Yeah.
One of the most difficult languages to learn, they say. Because I
Oh.
spent 6 months in Finland. Finnish is very aligned with Hungarian. They're from the same group of languages, let's call it like that.
Mm.
So difficult. I remember telling people, laughing, when I was in Finland for 6 months, I should learn the word kiitos, which is thank you, but kiitos, but they will be speaking about me, and I'm not understanding a word. Hungarian
Right.
is the same way. It's when you're out there in Budapest, even reading the street names is so difficult. So that's why it's so specific, because Hungarian, I don't think is spoke a lot outside Hungary.
No.
But great that your book made it out there. I mean, I hope it gets published in several languages soon.
Thanks. I hope so too.
So for that to happen, a publisher of the country will have to be interested, right?
Yep. That's the way I understand it. Anyway, that's what I was explained. That's how it was explained to me.
Okay, great. If you don't mind, I'm gonna look for it on some online bookstore, and I'll put a direct link, because usually viewers prefer just to click on stuff and going directly.
Amazon,
Amazon,
Barnes and
so-
Noble, and it's available in lots of different ones. Yeah.
Excellent. Do you have anything in closing, Peter, you would like to share?
Yeah, love the one you're with. Just love people the best you can. Treat them with kindness. Treat yourself with kindness. And if you're really interested in a spiritual journey, develop some kind of practice, either as Alex described his practice, your practice, or as some interior practice. It really makes a difference. It's what all of the ancient mystics, they all talk about.
Yes, I agree completely with you. If anything, I know you intend that, but I'm just gonna kind of clarify it, that I believe everything that you do from within is gonna come out great, and that's why I think your book and your movie eventually it's so different, because it's such a passionate within experience that you have, and because there are so many things out there that are confusing people, and it's the way it is. Okay, but I remember with meditation, one person one time telling me, "You're doing it wrong," and I said, "Can you do it wrong? I mean, is there a possibility to do it wrong? I mean, is there like a 4-step thing, and if I don't do it, it doesn't work at all?"
You're going to hell if you don't do it right.
So some stuff. No, well, there's the other school of thought that meditation is part of the diabolic, demonic practices, such as yoga, and that's the other part. Okay, like
right.
If I meditate, if I go within, if I connect to myself, is that so wrong? I mean, so I kind of left those things behind and say, I'm gonna trust a little bit more on me instead of those things. And that's my suggestion. Trust yourself. It's gonna be fine. You have a beautiful universe inside you because you are connected to the everything. So that's the beautiful part. And as we experience this reality, as we enjoy this reality, I believe that's the discovery part of saying everything is flashing, trying to get your attention. Everything, it's amazing. News and and fear, and it's trying to get your attention. And then if you go within, you're such a peace that is amazing. Okay. So thank you, Peter, for being here again. And I really enjoy your chats. And I hope you can be back soon.
You betcha. Anytime, Alex. Thanks for having me. Peace to
Thank
you and your country and your family. Well-being
you.
to you all.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you for making it to this part of the video. This is my favorite part. This is where I suggest to you that you discover your true self. You are not what you have been groomed to believe. You are this incredible being without limits that has eternal life, amazing strength, infinite wisdom, and a big, beautiful heart. All your limits are always self-imposed. Your best version in this reality is inside you. Your only mission on this life is to become a beacon of love and to serve others. This version is ready to be discovered today. How do you discover your true self? The discovery process is a personal one. No one can do it for you. Dedicate 5 minutes a day to talk to the universe. Simply ask, who am I? Where do I come from? What is my purpose? You will start getting signs, breakthroughs, and signals. You will notice how your notions about this reality start disappearing. No more hierarchies, no more competition, no more complaining, no more depending on others. Discovering your true self equals to real freedom. Your self-imposed limits will fall and you will be ready to understand this reality, but you must be patient to allow others to wake up at their time through their own free will. That will be really soon, you will see, and that will set up a new world. As you work towards your best version, you will notice how all emotions don't serve you anymore. Hate, fear, rage, pride, lust, envy, violence, justice through violence, judgment of others, and other emotions will disappear from your mind and heart. You will understand those emotions serve only your egoic mind and are not you. Please try to be understanding of others that don't think or feel like you. Everyone has a process. No one is right or wrong. We're all just different. Don't be concerned about being right, ever. Don't allow pride preventing you from patching things up with family and friends. It is very important you enjoy this life with your loved ones. Put in the work to patch things up and leave it to others to decide. Thank you very much for watching. Please share, like, and subscribe. If you have any comments or suggestions, please use the comment section below. For private questions, conversations, and if you would like to appear on the show, please email me at hey@thealexshow.tv. Thank you again. Please don't forget to visit our website www.thealexshow.tv. By giving me your time, you honor me. Have a very, very, very nice day.